set up. It's cool. It's digital. We'll make the best of it. I was looking forward to doing it this year in person, but we'll get it. We'll have a good time. So looking forward to a productive session. I'm gonna share my screen for a couple screens, and then I'm gonna pull back. And so let's see if I should be able to do that. Excellent. So the goal of this class is to give you the nuggets and ability to identify key things that can delay your deal or give you problems in closing altogether. So we'll make it very quick. I just want to introduce myself. I've been in the business for 10 years, over 10 years now, real estate and title attorney, escrow agent, title agent, closing agent. We do things super early, order early. We have a client satisfaction guarantee and a lot of other really cool things that make us different. But I want to talk to you guys straight into it. We're going to fly through this because we only have 30 minutes. But if you email us, I will be able to give you this all in writing and extra tidbits. So very, very, very important to remember when we're dealing with powers of attorney. What is a power of attorney? A power of attorney allows somebody to sign for somebody else, right? It's as simple as that. But when you have a loan, you need to remember that these need to be approved by your lender. So we prepare it, yes, but it needs to be approved. These things need to be done in advance. So if you hear somebody,
you're good to go. Hey,
one of your clients is not able to attend closing or be there at the signing in person, make sure that the title team, make sure that your lender know this ahead of time so that these things can be done in advance because it takes time to get them approved, it takes time to get them signed, and we need originals for closing. All right. With contracts, to secure your client's deposit, make sure that the right type of financing is selected. It might not, even if that deal doesn't work out because of that property, you want to make sure that your client is their escrow is protected so you can move on to the next deal. It may not work out for that one, but we want it to work out for the next one. If they apply for the wrong type of loan that's listed here, you're putting your client's escrow in jeopardy. Appraisal contingency. If it's not in your contract, it doesn't apply. So make sure that it's selected, especially in this market. Things are changing every day. This way, we make sure that your client's protected. But remember, a lot of listing agents don't like appraisal contingencies, right? Why? Because they get ordered like 5 days before closing, and then like you're thinking you're going to close, and all of a sudden your property didn't appraise. What you got to do to get that executed is to make sure you put in there that and require an early appraisal. Okay. Confirming the effective date. The effective date is the basis for everything in your contract. If you don't have that agreed to by all the parties, you actually will not, you're going to be running with different dates. So I want you guys just to make to know and to make sure that with the other realtor, your closing agent, what's your effective date? What date are you running with? And remember, the effective date does not apply until the last initial is done and until it's delivered. So don't think you have that extra day perhaps of inspection period. You may not. So if everyone's on the same date with the effective date, you can move forward and crunch your deadlines. Deadlines are super important. Add reminders. You don't want to blow those deadlines, and make sure you follow up, especially with the loan approval and inspection period. This is an important one. Who needs to sign the contract? Okay, so on the property appraisers, you will see someone listed there. It's super important to remember that sometimes we need more. Of course, if it's an estate, you need a personal representative to sign off. If it's a company, it needs to match the records of Sunbiz. If it doesn't, then you need something else to prove that they have the authority to sign. If they're signing with a power of attorney, you need to see a copy of the power of attorney. The buyer, whoever wants to be on title, is who should be on the contract. So buyer and borrower, even if they're not just necessarily the borrower, that's who needs to be on the contract. Make sure all the names are on there. With regards to the seller, sometimes you see et al. On the property appraisers. Make sure you click and look at the prior deed. That means there's more than one person on there, and we need to find out who those other names are. So if you don't have all the right parties signing off on your contract, you have an ineffective contract. And then later when the problems arise and someone wants to back out, that's going to be a way to get out of it. and you can't really force the people to it. So make sure that your records actually reflect. And if you're not sure, ask your team, ask your professionals, ask your broker, ask me. I'm happy to guide you through to see who's there. One of the trickiest ones is life estates. If you see LE on the property appraiser with some other names there, those other names may or may not have to sign. It's a very technical reason why they may or may not, but just know that you need to ask those right questions to make sure that your contract is going to be fully executed. All right, moving along. Loan approval period. This is super important. This changed a few years ago. Your loan approval period basically means if it passes, there's no other way around it. So you need to make sure that those contingencies are in and there's nothing else. This includes your condo approval. People, condo approval. Make sure your budgets are in, your insurance is in, make sure all those things are done. If there's litigation, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but make sure that's in. It's your job as the listing agent to provide that to the buyer side. It's your job as the buyer to ask for it if it's not given to you so that your lender has what they need early. Okay. On top of that, if the 30 days pass and they get denied, you're going to have a problem getting your loan approved, your escrow back. It's been a big thing lately. And we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So, because if it doesn't work for this deal, doesn't mean it can't work for the next deal. But if they lose their escrow, that commission's never happening. Never mind, not right now. Improperly written amendments. Keep it as simple as possible. Don't play lawyer and try not to get too creative. If you do, what's going to happen is they're not always written so clearly. And then when everyone else is there trying to determine what actually was agreed to and people are disagreeing as to what was written, that's definitely going to delay your deal. So ask for help, ask your broker, ask the lawyer to help write the wording on that to make sure it's clear and that everyone's on the same page. I can't tell you how many times I've had borrowers call me, buyers call me, say, listen, I'm supposed to close tomorrow, but no one told me I needed to apply. Like, you're required to apply within 5 days. The default is 5 days after effective date. So guys, make sure your clients knows what's going on. If there's an HOA or an association, condo association, find out the rules. Is there a formal application? What's the deal? And so that they can go and make sure they apply early. They have 30 days to get approved. Don't be the agent that didn't tell your client how to apply with the association. I tell you, it happens all the time. FIRPTA. You could teach a whole class on this. It's like an hour just to tell you the details, but I want you to be aware that if your seller is foreign, we need to withhold proceeds unless they fall under an exception. If that's the case, you don't want your agent, your seller finding out about it at the closing table or a couple days before closing, because you're gonna have a very angry seller. So just let your sellers know, educate yourself about the intricacies of closing. You're not gonna do the forms, you're not gonna do the withholding, but you should be setting that up so the expectations are right for your foreign seller. And God forbid you're trying to get paperwork from a CPA during tax season, make sure it's not being done 3 days before closing because you need that to be done early. They take forever. And this is a very intricate part of real estate and tax law. So you either know it or you don't. So don't let a CPA fool you, and make sure that they really have the experience. Certificate of reoccupancy. Here's my short list. It'll be in the handout that I'll give you later, but this is the short list of the cities that have certificate of reoccupancy in Miami-Dade, which means you need to call in an inspection with the city, pay a few $100 and get something in writing saying that it's approved to be sold. They'll look for things that are done without permits. They'll look for things that are done without code violations, things not up to code, to make sure they want to get their piece of the action. That's how they do it. Okay, the cities are a couple of $100 at least, and then if changes need to be done. So don't wait till the last minute. If it's your listing, I would say it's your responsibility with the seller to get these done. Super important. Closings on and loans on condos. I swear that this is like the worst part of real estate, I think, for me as a closing agent. Is there enough reserves? 20% down or not? Is it the right type of deposit for this type of loan, for this type of building based on litigation, master insurance, assessments, liens? Is there construction being done? All these trigger stuff. So what I will say is to not delay your deal or get under contract with the wrong borrower because you don't have the information up front. What I'll tell you is this: when you get a listing, go speak to your seller should have this information. If not, have them request it. Is there litigation? Is there insurance? Are there any construction happening? What type of reserves do you have? What's the budget? Not 2019 budget, not a proposed budget, a true budget. I'm not a loan expert, but I know this enough to say you need these documents up front. Why? When your borrower comes through with another agent, you can hand that off and say, here, this is the package, give it to the lender. This is what I know about the property. If you have a good lender you can call like Anthony, they'll tell you, listen, this is not gonna work. Don't even entertain this offer. Anthony's here, say hi, Anthony. Don't even entertain this offer, right? Because you need at least 25% down. Not gonna happen. They don't have the reserves, or they're like this, or they're like that, depending on the issue. So it's super important to make sure you know what you're dealing with. And you can't get around it. It's Florida, people. There's condos everywhere. So make sure that you keep that in check, that you know what you're doing, and actually upload those things in the MLS so that the agent already has it. They know what the issue is so they don't bring the wrong buyer to you. There's nothing worse for the buyer and the seller to get 30 days into it, 45 days into it, only find out at the last minute that this condo doesn't work for this loan. It's really sad for everybody, right? Everyone hates it. The sellers are carrying the property longer. The buyers wasted their time, inspection, appraisal. And you could have found this out as a listing agent with the information, and a good buyer's agent will send it off. And we don't know if we have a good buyer's agent or not, right? So as a listing agent, say, let me speak to the lender and have that conversation. That's how you make sure your deals don't get stuck in this condo purgatory, right? Because you're just like waiting. Oh, I'm waiting for the insurance. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for that. And we know they don't get it to us until the end. So if you had the listing, get it up front so you can get it done. Super, super important. In Florida, there's something called homestead, which means regardless of who's on the contract, of who's on title, or who is going to be on title, right? You still need the spouse's consent for a deed or a mortgage if it's the primary residence of the seller or will be the primary residence of the buyer. You need the consent. There's no way around it. There's no waivers, prenups, or anything that you can do to get around that. So if you're sitting down at a listing and you see only one person is named on title, it's a very important question to ask. Are you married? Why? Oh, I'm separated. Did you get divorced? No, these are important questions. We'll talk about that later, because they will need that estranged spouse that they didn't speak to from 10 years ago will still need to sign that deed, regardless of what their terms of their separation are. So you need to know the marital status. And if you're not sure what the intricacies are, ask your team to help you look out for that. They need to sign the deed. They need to sign the mortgage. It needs to be notarized. So it's super important that we organize that up front. All right. All right, divorce and separation. In Florida, there's no such thing as legal separation. It's either you're divorced or you're married. So you see how this can be a complication, right? If we have someone who wants to buy a property, they got separated many years ago, they never did it formally, they don't really care, the guy's in another country, well, they're still gonna need that spouse to sign off on the mortgage. Adds an extra layer of complication, right? Or how about the same thing on the sale, same thing on the deed? They're still gonna have to sign off. That estranged spouse is still gonna have to sign off. Or what if they just got separated? They wanna move on, they wanna sell now, they wanna buy now, and the other spouses are not on title. It doesn't matter. If it's gonna be a primary residence, or if it is your primary residence, that spouse's consent is needed, even if they're not entitled to the proceeds. Ask the questions. That's nothing else you learned today is ask the questions. Death of a property owner. Sometimes it's as simple as a death certificate. Sometimes it's as complicated as a probate. They're really not that complicated for us because it's something we do every day. But what I want you guys to know is that some deeds have built-in inheritance and some don't. So when you're listing a property, you need to make that determination if you need probate or not, if the person who's sitting in front of you is not the person who's on the property appraiser site. If someone owns the property as husband and wife and one of those spouses dies, build an inheritance, you're good. If someone has the property as joint tenants with right of survivorship, that's the language on the deed, you're good with built-in inheritance. There's things called life estates too. The idea is you want to make sure you're signing a listing agreement with the right person and that you're not listing a property that is not even able to be sold yet because it's supposed to go through probate. The idea is to understand that if you're sitting down at a listing appointment and not sitting with the person who's on there or not sitting with everyone who's on the property appraiser site, you need to ask the question, where is so-and-so? Who are they? Where are they? Hang on, I'm seeing there's some chats. How does life estate work? It basically says, I own the property for my life. Upon my passing, it goes to you, to be very simple. So that's how life estate works. There's different types, and depending on the type, there's certain rights, responsibilities, and duties and requirements. But so there's something called enhanced life estate, and then there's a regular life estate. Enhanced allows the person to sign without the future owner, but sometimes you need the future owner to sign off on that deed. So you need to be aware and just at least identify that this is a life estate. You'll see the LE on the property appraisers. Let us know, and we'll help you walk through those intricacies and make sure you have the right people signing. Recent marriage. We spoke about marriage and the impact of that. But if someone gets married during a transaction and their name's going to change, their loan application might be the wrong name. It's happened before. So that's why I'm telling you, we don't want to get to the closing table and we have the ID and the wrong name of the loan package. So if you know someone's going to be getting married during the process, ask them if they're going to do a name change. Let the important people know, title and the loan officer, so that we can make sure that the right things get done, or we say hold off on the name change until after closing, etc. Survey. Guys, if there's a loan, a survey is always needed for closing. Don't let the lender tell you it's not needed. It's not my requirement. Yes, it is your requirement. You know why? You need a clean title report. You need a clean policy with no exceptions. I will be required to issue exceptions if there's no policy, there's no survey. So they make you waste 2 weeks sometimes going back and forth. It's required. No, it's not required. It's required if there's a loan. Optional if it's cash, but highly recommended, of course. I see another question. What if the spouse owned the property and then the spouse wants to get on title before closing while in contract? It can be done. You know, you just got to advise the parties as soon as possible. Okay, it can be done. It's not impossible. Cash to close from the correct account. Oh my God, it's not my job to tell them which account. It's a lender's job. But guys, we have to keep our ears peaked. I can't tell you how many times we're sitting at the table and we find out the funds are coming from the wrong account. It can't be the random account. It can't be from a friend's account. It can't be from a partner's account. It can't be from the business account. It has to be from the account that got approved by the lender, that they did the due diligence on. So if you hear something, just the idea of this is not for you to tell, it's not your job, but to keep your ears peaked. This way, if you hear something going on that doesn't sound right, you can say, hey, hold on, let's make sure. It happens to us too. Is it okay if I send it from my business account? They'll ask, no. I'm not the person to ask. Let's get the lender on the phone right now and find out. You know what I mean? So that's the important thing I want you guys to think about. Okay. Make sure the right parties are available. So we spoke about the seller. Obviously, if they're on title, they got to sign. The spouses have to sign regardless. The borrower has to sign the mortgage. The buyers on title have to sign the mortgage. The spouses of anyone that I listed there have to sign. It's so important. They might not have to sign the listing agreement in the contract, but they have to sign. I'm bringing it up again because this happens all the time. Like it's going to delay your closing if that person's traveling or being out of town, right? So make sure you know, and if not, we get the POAs, the powers of attorney, to do that. So that is everything in a nutshell. I have more. What I'm going to talk to you about right now is proper intake. Proper intake, just like any business, getting those details from your clients, whether they're buyer or seller, upfront, will minimize 3/4 of these problems. So if you have a true listing agreement with the right seller, ask the right questions, and collect the right information up front, you're going to be good, at least on your side of the transaction, right? And on the buyer side, guys, pick the right lenders. be careful who you refer, because that our lively, not just yours, mine too, our livelihoods are in their hands, right? So you want to make sure that the right people are being decided on. And when you're looking at multiple offers, look at the paper it's being written on. Whose approval letter is that? If you're not familiar with them, ask around, give them a call. Because I'll tell you at the end of the day, some approval letters are worth more than others, right? Looking at a contract, at an offer with the approval letter is super important that you pay attention, especially on the listing side, that you know the type of property you have and the loan requirements for that property. It's not our job to know it to issue the loan, right? It's our job to know it so that when we're looking at the contract, we're not wasting our time, and that our seller's not wasting their time, because the seller's got carrying costs, right? To keep it going. They might want to move somewhere else. They have other plans. And then we don't get paid until that closes. So don't put your property under contract with the wrong borrower, because they can't qualify for the specific type of loan, or they don't have enough money down. These little condos here in town, I'll tell you right now, you need 25% down if they qualify. Some buildings don't have flood insurance, and if they're in a flood zone, you need it. It's a non-negotiable, right? And speaking of insurance, we are in hurricane season, which means if we're not bound and we could become in the cone, doesn't matter if it's a sunny day outside, we cannot close, because they will not issue new policies. So I just want to remind you guys, even, that policies get bound as soon as possible in these months, because we're just getting started. The peak has not started yet, right? My birthday's next week. Every year on my birthday, there's always a tropical storm brewing, the end of August, right? So just want to remind you guys that is a super important thing for you to remind your client. Don't wait till last minute to bind. Doesn't mean that you have to pay it up front, but you still have to bind it so that you can close on time. So any questions for me? Otherwise, I'll keep rambling. No? Let me have it if you guys have there was a time or one of those things. I'm happy to respond. Thank you. Keep going. I will. So we spoke about intake. I want to bring you guys back to that. Intake is super important. So I want you guys to sit down. I might create this for you guys. It's been on my radar to do this for you guys, but sit down, create a list of questions that you need to know. You'll get my cheat sheet if you send me an email after today, and you'll be able to create a list of all the things you need to get information on. So if it's your listing or versus your buyer, and then go through, and at some point when it's appropriate, make sure you ask those questions about marital status. Okay, I'm married. Yeah. Okay, where's your spouse? They're not at the listing appointment. Usually spouses will do that together, right? It's a big decision which realtor to hire, or what we're going to list the property as. So if you start seeing only one spouse, oh, where are they? Oh, they don't live here. Where do they live? Oh, okay. They're going to, if it's your primary residence in Florida, they're going to have to sign off. Is that going to be a problem? Oh, no, it's no problem. They're just traveling, or they're stuck over here for quarantine and now people can't, travel or whatever. But it's not going to be a problem, but you do need to know that they're going to have to sign. And if they're in certain parts of the world where it's hard to get things notarized, we plan in advance, right? Way before closing, you can get that power of attorney done. Way before closing, you can work out logistics. Okay. I'm going to drop my email here. I'm being asked about my contact information. So if you email me, Melinda@Grimaldi-Law, there's my email. Shoot me an email and let me know you want my cheat sheet. And then I will also I will build out that extra thing for you guys, basically an intake form. Intake is a super important part of any business. You get to know your client and you get to know what are the intricacies, because no deal is the same. Are they foreign? Are they married, divorced, separated? Where are they? This is a primary residence. If it's a buyer, who's your lender? Are they pre-approved? Have a discussion with the lender. Don't waste your time with a buyer that is not properly approved. Don't just get one of those that'll just shoot out a letter just to shoot it out, because we're wasting everybody's time, right? All right, so a little promise that I have a money back guarantee. We're the most creative closing agent out there. We get it done, we get it closed, and we're so confident that you will be happy with our services and that your client will be happy that we won't charge a settlement fee at closing if they don't qualify. Anthony on this, he's on here as well. We have a show called Damage Control. We are doing it bi-weekly now, but the next episode is next week. Why are deals blowing up in your face is the topic. We talk about marketing, we talk about sales, we talk about deals. So come and join us. It's virtual for now. It's like a podcast, but if you come live, you get to interact and ask questions. So that's pretty much it. Here's my contact info. I see one more question here. Back to the need of a survey. If a property is pre-existing, wouldn't it already have a survey and be on file? The seller may have a survey from when they purchased. They may have lost it. We can sometimes use a prior survey, but the seller has to agree to it. The seller has to sign an affidavit that it can be used and that there's been no changes since they did the survey. A lot of times, people do renovations and things that change the boundary line. Even a hedge change, like a pool or something like that, will change the ability to use that. So although it's a possibility, it's not a guarantee. It's definitely something that if you want to do, ask for it up front. It would need the closing agent and the underwriter's approval to proceed on that. Anthony just dropped the link for damage control. If you guys want to join us on our show, you'll get notified when we have different things coming up. Let me get out of the share screen. Whoop, how do I do that? Let's see here. I don't think, am I sharing still? Yes, no? Am I sharing my screen? Stop share. Here we go. I found it. So that's pretty much the presentation. I know we have 3 minutes left. I know there's going to be somebody else. Actually, Anthony is next in this room for his sales and lead to commissions, or top tips to convert leads to commissions. He's up next in this room. So I would suggest staying in this room. It's a great class. I've sat on it. I've learned a lot from him in sales. So I think it's going to be a great, great one. I was just talking about how great your class is going to be, Anthony. You're coming up next in this room, so you could stay right there and hang out with us. I'll be here too, hanging out for his class, because I always learn something new with him. But I think the bottom line moral of the story is ask the right questions. I gave you a bunch of questions to ask now, right? All these tips, ask the right questions. And then after asking the right questions, communicate. And if you're not sure, just over communicate with your lender and your closing agent so that we know what's going on as early as possible. Knowing about these things, they're not necessarily deal killers if we find out about them in the beginning. If we have time to resolve, then that's the beauty of it, right? That's why we order our searches early. If we know, the first week what our title problems are, what our lien searches issues are, that's where that's the beauty, because we have time to resolve it. If we find out about these things, these problems 2 days before closing, that's where you have escrows at risk. That's where you have mad clients. That's where you're frustrated because you thought you were going to get paid in 2 days, right? So, and then sometimes you don't get the extensions. If you have a client that doesn't want to give the extension, then it is what it is. And then there you go, right? So let's not have the need for the extensions. It's happened before. You need an extension for the loan. That's fine. But then last minute, we find out we need another extension for something else. That's where your sellers are not as patient, right? So thank you very much for the feedback, Angela. I appreciate it. I love my mug. I see there. Turn it around. The mug, the front part of the mug. Coffees for closers. Oh yeah, baby.
That's great. Thank you so much, Melinda. We really appreciate it. That is great information.